Today's conversation is going to be called NYC, Black Exodus or Black Erasure. You heard what I said, family. NYC, Black Exodus or Black Erasure. Why do I call this commentary NYC, Black Exodus or Black Erasure, family? I saw a clip of Mayor Mundami having a conversation with a dude. Don't know the dude's name. But they were having a conversation about Black Americans, foundational Black Americans. And I thought the conversation was really interesting, family, because what they were saying was something I've never heard before. Because as a Black American, being in this city for multiple generations, I know what this city is about. I know what this city has done to Black Americans. And when I look at New York City today, the landscape of New York City and what it looks like today, I know that it's not the same New York City that my grandmother moved to in 1957 from Valencia, Mississippi. So when Mayor Mondami was talking to some individual about New York City, he was talking about foundational Black Americans in New York City. And the conversation came about as to why the population of Black Americans in New York City is so low. Mayor Mondami came up with his theory, and I just thought it was really interesting. He said he believes that the reason why the population of Black Americans is low in New York City is because of Black Exodus. He painted this whole picture that Black people, Black Americans, have left New York City to go back down south. That's what he said. A exodus. If anybody knows what an exodus is, if you are a biblical person or you follow religion, we know that the Exodus was with the Hebrews, and Moses. How Moses, under the idea of letting my people go from Pharaoh, he wanted to take his people to the promised land, family. And it was called the Exodus, where this group of people, some say it could have been 200,000 or even more, people were supposed to leave ancient Egypt and go to the promised land. So Moses was extracting hundreds of thousands of people out of Egypt and taking them to the promised land. So Mayor Mundami said that Black people disappearing out of New York was because of this imaginary exodus, family. That we exodus New York, Black Americans, FBAs, and went elsewhere. We went down south. We went to the west. We went wherever. Let's talk about this, family, because I ain't gonna lie to you, family, this shit pissed me off. It pissed me off because Mayor Mundami was lying. And if we're going to talk about the truth about New York and why Black Americans are very little in population in New York, then we have to tell the truth. We can't come up with some imaginary damn lie about Black Americans having some kind of exodus of New York and going elsewhere. When we know what happened in New York, family, can we talk some truth? Why New York City is a oasis for immigrants, and why New York City is so few FBAs in New York City right now, and it wasn't because of no damn exodus like Mayor Mundami talked about. All right, if it was some exodus like Black Americans just left New York for elsewhere, then what the hell was that crack epidemic about? What was that about? When my granny came to New York City in 1957 from Biloxi, Mississippi, the landscape of New York City was very different, family. There wasn't a lot of all these immigrants in New York City in 1957. My mom, unfortunately, was a victim of crack cocaine, of drugs, in the 80s. And that whole generation of people, that my mom's generation, my mom is in her late 60s, early 70s, that whole generation of the 80s was eviscerated with crack cocaine, and other drugs that caused a major ripple effect in that generation. It was something different because prior to that generation, family, that was a Black Power generation in the 70s. And prior to that, that was the Civil Rights generation. So we've seen prosperity through multiple generations. Through the 60s, we saw the Civil Rights movement come in, and it helped shape groundwork for Black Americans to have something to be proud of and to something to move forward with. But it also opened up the gate for a lot of immigration. So you had this, so that 60s goes into the 70s, family, follow me, because we're going to debunk Mayor Mondami in real time. So we had that 60s civil rights movement, which ushered in a lot of immigration. So you go into the 70s, where Black Americans are having a Black Power movement, which is stemming from the 60s because Malcolm X was assassinated, Martin Luther King was assassinated. So with their assassinations, you have a rebirth in Black American identity, and we ain't taking shit. We're not having it. You assassinated our leaders, and we just started to become a little more militant with the Black Power movements, right? And the Black Panthers with those 70s. So we know that our government needed a way to basically calm that noise down. So what did they do, family, in the 80s? They ushered in cocaine and crack. And what did that do to that generation? It eviscerated that entire generation. All over the United States, and especially in the West Coast and all over the place. But in New York City, that crack generation eviscerated that whole generation, family. They said that you had women who were the most beautiful women you ever seen turned into zombies and started selling their kids' clothes and selling, anything for a hit. Unfortunately, my mother was a part of that generation. She fell victim to that addiction. You understand what I'm saying, family? So Mayor Mondami, Black folks did an Exodus, New York. We were hit with crack cocaine. And then what followed crack cocaine, family? Because we going to talk about it. Because this idea that Black folks just left New York City, it's bullshit. It's bullshit. So then what happened? They ushered in mass incarceration, family. Yes, they did. They ushered in mass incarceration. And right after crack cocaine hit and they ushered in mass incarceration, what did they do, family? They extracted millions of potential fathers out of our homes and put them in prison, ushering a new generation of single-parent households. Is that what they did, family? That's what they did, family. Ushered in a new generation during the 80s into the 90s, ushered in a new generation of single-parent households where a lot of men were in prison, a lot of FBA women were strung out on drugs, and a lot of their children were victims to growing up in the streets and raising themselves. So the whole family dynamic was destroyed in the 80s and 90s, family. That's what happened in New York. Oh, yeah. Oh, yeah. And then what else happened in New York, family? HIV. Yes. That whole drug, that whole junkie situation, what were they doing? Ushering in heroin. Those heroin needles. And what did that do, family? That started to usher in a whole new generation of HIV in the 80s and 90s. From the syringes being used with the heroin and the drugs. So we see something totally different, family, than what Mayor Mondami's talking about. When asked what happened to the FBA population in New York City, he said, well, there must have been Black flight. There must have been a Black exodus. Well, I challenge him and say, well, why didn't you say, where was the exodus? I know about the crack epidemic. I know about mass incarceration. I know about the HIV epidemic. I know about the single-parent household epidemic. I know about urban renewal, right? Where they were going into black neighborhoods and pulling the infrastructure from up under our feet, having black store owners lose their stores and lose their properties and lose their brownstones in Harlem. And what happened when those people had to leave those brownstones in Harlem? You had immigrants coming in and buying those brownstones. You had YTs coming in and buying those brownstones. What happened to Harlem, fruitful Harlem? The Harlem that Malcolm X stood on the corner. The Nation of Islam was selling bean pies on the corner. What happened when we were owning business and infrastructure there? We know what happened, Mayor Mondami. You had gentrification. You had urban renewal. Black folks lost their stores. And all of this happening, family, all of this happening. At the same time, mass amounts of immigrants were flooding our country. Mass amounts during the 80s and 90s, mass amounts. While black folks were losing stores, losing their homes, losing their brownstones, getting kicked and evicted out into streets, being victims of drugs and drug overdoses and HIV and all kinds of madness. Immigrants were flooding New York City, coming from the Caribbean, many coming from the Caribbean, some coming from Africa, many coming from Europe. A lot of the Hispanics were coming in during the 70s and 80s. You understand, family? And the whole landscape of New York City started to change for Black Americans. Let's talk about census records, family. Can we talk about census records? You know, Cotton Club Radio, I bring the receipts every damn time because I take this shit serious and I don't play. In 1970, family, you go check the records. Don't listen to me. Don't you listen to me. Go check the damn records yourself. In 1970, the FBA population of New York City was 28%. The Hispanic population was 16%, family. The YT population of New York City in 1970 was 32%. You understand, family? So in 1970, the black population in New York City, the foundational black American population in New York City, was more than the Hispanic population. And you wouldn't even think that because they pretty much ushered in a whole few million Hispanics in here and basically took over New York City. You would never think that at one time the black folks in New York City were more than the Hispanics. And just in 1970, family, by 2010, I didn't say 2020, I said by 2010, the FBA population in New York City was about 6%, 6 to 7%. And the Hispanic population in New York City by 2010 was 32%. You understand me, family? And the YT population was untouched. It was still 32%. From 1970, the YT population in New York City was 32%. By 2010, it was still 32%, untouched. We were nearly decimated. How the hell did we go from 28% in 1970 to 7% in 2010? Who knows what the hell we are now? That was 2010. It's 2026. Somebody do the census records, and they may tell you we increased. They're lying. It was just a population of black immigrants classifying as Black American, and they came in and they added them with our numbers to make it seem like that we're more than what we are. And this is what they continue to do, family, because they try to hide the fact that we've been ethnically erased, damn near. They try to add in immigrants into our population and add that to the census so it can make it look like our population has not decreased dramatically. The insidious mind of these people, family. So while the population in New York City is damn near disappeared, Mayor Mondami will tell you because that was some kind of black exodus and we done went fucking elsewhere. I'm telling you, family, that did not happen. We didn't go anywhere. We were decimated. This was sanctioned. This was authorized and sanctioned. The black population in New York City being damn near decimated was authorized and sanctioned. Multiple levels. You understand? This was planned. It was predetermined. I'm telling you, family. They basically ethnic erased us. They took us out and replaced us with Hispanics. So right now, the Hispanic population is about 32% in New York City. We're about, to be honest with you, we're probably about 4% now. FBAs in New York City, we're about 4% now. That's damn near half. That's more than half of our population in New York City is gone. And it ain't because we took our shit and went down south or moved somewhere else like Mayor Mundami is telling you. It's a goddamn lie. It ain't true at all. There's no exodus. There's no black American exodus back to the South. We ain't doing that shit. Not in large numbers. Some of us, went down, but most of us were wiped out. We have to be very careful when we're dealing with people and them trying to rewrite history. And it's not surprising that the same people who are trying to rewrite history are immigrants. Because they don't want to admit that not only did they wipe us out of New York City, but they replaced us with immigrants. So why does New York City look like an oasis today, full of immigrants? It's because they literally swapped us out. They took out the FBA population in New York City and replaced it with immigrants. There was no black flight and none of that shit, no exodus and none of that crap. You understand, family? And now they're finishing the final wave. They just allowed 20 more? They say almost 20 more during the Biden administration. They allowed almost 20 more million immigrants on top of us. So I don't even want to know the census records for New York City, what the black population is now in 2026. I'm sure it's probably about 3%. So you explain to me, family, how does that happen? 1970, 28%, 2010, 6%, 7%. How does that happen without ethnic erasure? And then when we say things, when we keep it funky and we tell the truth about this, you have many people who are a lot of immigrants who are in political positions now trying to rewrite that history. So it's not a coincidence that Mayor Mundami doesn't want to tell the truth about what happened. He never mentioned the crack epidemic. He never mentioned mass incarceration. He never mentioned the single-parent household situation. He never mentioned urban renewal. He never mentioned redlining. He never mentioned gentrification. He never mentioned nothing like that. He just said black Americans had an exodus. What the f is he talking about? So we have to watch this, family, because it seems to be that every 50 years, they usher in more millions and millions of more immigrants in here to bury us. And in many cases, we don't even know. We're unaware of it because we're living our day-to-day lives. We don't truly understand the insidious nature of our government and what they're actually doing when they're ushering all these immigrants in here. All we do is just look around and we start seeing less of us and more of them. And we don't understand that this has been predetermined. They've already mapped this out. I'm going to take it a little deeper with y'all, family. Let me just say this. There's a guy by the name of Robert Moses, and they were calling him the power broker. Some of y'all understand. Some of y'all know who I'm talking about. And he was a part of the small hat community. And during the 40s and 30s and 40s, he was very, very, very instrumental in constructing New York City as far as the landscape, where certain highways were going to be, where projects were going to be. Yeah, I said projects. Where certain projects were going to be, where certain companies, etc. Robert Moses was constructing New York City. Many of you ever seen movies where you see the YT guys kind of around this little small miniature city, and they're kind of putting markers on what they're going to build and what they're going to do? Robert Moses was that guy. He was the head echelon. He was the YT top guy in doing that shit. And he was responsible for choosing where in the city to place project buildings where black people would live. And it's not a coincidence that if you go to every city, the projects are almost identical. Where black people live in those projects, they're almost identical. And that's not by mistake. That's very much by design. They did that in case, and notice these projects are always near freeways. And they did that in case there was some kind of coup or black people started to revolt and rise up. They could lock us in You understand? They can lock us in our projects and they can get us, because it's one way in and one way out the projects. So in case we ever had any kind of population rise up, they could cut off the freeways and lock us in the projects, and they can get us that way very easily because it's one way in and one way out. A lot of people don't know that. You understand? So we have to start looking at these cities in the way that they're mapped out and the way we're in these cities as something that's been already designed and something that's already been seen, family. They already mapped this out years ago. Even before many of you were born, they knew where they were going to place you. They knew that they were going to put you in projects, and they knew that they were going to drain resources out of those projects and make those projects poverty-stricken so they can control the environment that you're being raised in, so they can control your fate. Because if you're born into chaos, you're going to live a life of chaos to a certain degree, unless you rise above that chaos and change it. But many people fall victim to the chaos before they're even able to change that chaos. It's not a coincidence that many of you were born into the chaos. That was designed. It was designed for you to be born into that chaos. It's not a coincidence that many YTs are born into prosperity. You understand, family? So when breaking down Mayor Mundami's comments about Black Americans and why we're so too and few in New York City, it is not black flight, family. It is not no damn black exodus. We were wiped out strategically. It's very important that we start understanding what plans people have for us and understanding that a lot of these plans that people in power have for us has already been predetermined, and it's on us to start spreading the right information amongst each other so we can know what's going on, family. It's very important that we guide each other with this information so we can protect each other. Because I'm going to keep it funky with you, family. We all we got. You got people from foreign countries coming here and they're looking out for each other. They don't give a damn about us. They come here, they set themselves up in their own communities. They separate themselves from Black Americans. They separate themselves and put themselves in their own little enclaves and, have their own little stores and have their own little meat markets, etc. They set themselves up real good. And they talk bad about Black Americans because they don't have to carry the onslaught of the crack epidemic. While immigrants were coming here and receiving government funding and setting themselves up real good, Black Americans were being hit with crack cocaine. We were being hit with the crack epidemic. We were being hit with mass incarceration. We were being hit with redlining. We were being hit with urban renewal. We were getting hit with single parent households. You understand? We were being hit, and our onslaught was already happening when many immigrants were coming here. They didn't understand what they were seeing. They were seeing crackheads and dope heads and thinking that those are Black American people. But the generation prior to that were scholars and militants and creating breakfast programs and agendas that could free our people and liberate our people. When many immigrants were coming here, they were coming here and seeing crackheads and dope heads and thinking that those are Black Americans. Those weren't normal Black Americans. Those were addicts. And what did they do? Instead of looking at those people with empathy, because, many immigrants didn't understand what was going on. They didn't understand that our government had waged war upon us. They didn't understand that shit. They just saw a bunch of crackheads and dopeheads. They said, these American Negroes are crazy. They're lazy. They don't want to do nothing. They smoke crack all day. You understand? They didn't understand that our government had already waged war upon us. And these were not just addicts. These were prisoners of war, and these were people who were victims. And instead of many immigrants coming here and being empathetic, they judged them. And they told their children, stay away from those people. Don't go near those people. Those American Negroes, those Black Americans, don't go near them. Don't play with them. Don't nothing. And in a few generations, we created hip hop. And those same kids, immigrant kids, who were told to stay the hell away from us, started hanging back out with us while we were creating hip hop. And they were learning, they were listening to our music. Marvin Gaye, I'm a trouble man. I come up hard. What's going on? They were listening. While we were playing James Brown, I'm Black and I'm Proud, they were listening. And they were hanging out with us. Those same immigrant kids who their parents were just telling them, stay the hell away from those Negroes, they started hanging back out with us. And they started doing what we were doing. Listening to the music we were listening to. And our parents were listening to. Dancing the dances we were dancing to. We created hip hop. Right there, family. Right during a whole onslaught. While the government was waging war on us, we were creating hip hop. And trying to put our families back together. And trying to recover from being decimated. That's what they don't tell you, family. So while many of you immigrants were coming to America, you were living and breathing an immigrant story. The Black American was already being raised war upon by our government. Already 30 years prior, with the Civil Rights Movement into the Black Power movements. You understand? You got to know who you're dealing with. You're not dealing with weaklings. We survived mass incarceration. We survived that crack epidemic, that heroin epidemic, that HIV epidemic. We survived it. And now many of us are millennials, where our parents are recovered addicts. And many of us are fathers and husbands and have changed our lives in ways our parents could never. Many of us have ended all kinds of horrible cycles, fatherlessness, even motherlessness, to become great fathers, great mothers. And they still tell you to this day that Black fathers are not in the goddamn household, and we know that that's a lie. That ain't even true. Many of us who didn't even have fathers who were in our lives present have become some of the best fathers, surviving a whole generation off of crack cocaine and heroin and mass incarceration. We're still here, family. So even though Mayor Mandami will tell you that the reason why FBAs are low in New York is because of some fake ass Black Exodus and some Black flight, I'm telling you that's a goddamn lie. They tried to wipe us out, and we're still here, family. COVID as well. You're 100% right. We tried to do it with that shit too. We're still here. So yes, the landscape is different. The landscape of New York City is a lot different than what my grandmother saw when she came from Mississippi in 1957. It's a different New York than my mother and my uncles and them grew up in. You understand? Being first generation New Yorkers from Mississippi in 57, it's a total different city. You know, when I speak to my uncles, he tell me that when he came up here, New York was black. And you had some Puerto Ricans, but it was black. And now look at New York. It's a cesspool. They basically moved all these third world people and put them in New York.
King. Look. Let your angel sing. I ain't twisted, this ain't the Henny talking for me. This is literally Malcolm Little talking through me. I ain't possessed, this is just when spirit meets the flesh. And a revolutionary is born, nothing less. It's hard for me to cope with stress, especially when I see the world much different from the rest. I can't sleep, nightmares, waking up, cold sweat, wondering if I ever made it, will they do me like the rest? For my black souls who really too upset to rest, so they wander through my dreams, please tell me what this means.
Glove ready.